When you see or hear some sensation or a suspiciously strange story in the news, don't you want to know if this information is really true? If so, then you can turn to horary astrology for an answer. Take, for example, the situations with John McAfee and Robert Trump. Both are dead, we were told. Moreover, their death smacks of some kind of mysticism or fake. John McAfee is the founder of a well-known company under his own name, McAfee, which creates security software for fighting computer viruses. Just recently, the following news has spread around the world. John committed suicide in a Spanish prison, where he was awaiting extradition to the United States. However, we also remember that John once said that he was not going to lay hands on himself. And if the media suddenly reports that McAfee should be found hanged himself, then we should know that it will be, as he clearly said, not his fault. Let's take a look at the horary chart. The question was, is John McAfee really dead? The confirmation of death in horary equations is the completed last aspect of the hero's planet with the planet of death. Therefore, in order to make a judgment, we must first identify the hero's planet in the chart, the person who is asked about in the horary equation. Second, identify the planet of death. Third, make sure that the last separating aspect that the hero's planet has done was with the planet of death. Only in this case we can make a judgment that the person being asked about is really dead. In all other cases, the answer will be negative. The person is alive. At least the death that was implied in the question, date, circumstances of death about which everyone became aware, etc., did not take place. So, let's go back to the chart. For the one who asked this horary question, John McAfee is not a friend, not a brother, just some other person. The other person in the horary chart is the 7th house. The 7th house begins in the zodiac sign Taurus. Taurus is ruled by the planet Venus. So, John McAfee is represented here by the planet Venus. Now we need to identify the planet of death. Death in the horary chart is lord of both the radical and the turn 8th houses. The 8th radical house begins in Gemini, ruled by the planet Mercury, and 8th turn house. We count 8 houses starting with the house of John McAfee. Originates here. The sign of Sagittarius is ruled by the planet Jupiter. So, our central actors are John McAfee is the planet Venus, death is the planets Mercury and Jupiter. And now we look with which planet was the last aspect of Venus, our McAfee. With Mercury or with Jupiter? No, with none of them. The last separating aspect of Venus was with the Moon. Despite the fact that the Moon is now in another sign, we count this aspect, because the Moon has just entered another sign, completing the aspect of opposition with Venus. But the Moon is not death here. Even if we additionally take Arabian parts of death, in order to see if there was a separating aspect between the lords of the Arabian parts of death and Venus, we will find that no, there was no aspect. The parts stay in the sign of Pisces and Gemini, which are ruled by Jupiter and Mercury, respectively. Again, by the way, Jupiter and Mercury. But none of these parts of Des in this chart are ruled by the Moon, with which Venus had the last separating aspect. So, we remember the rule of horary astrology. If the last separating aspect of the hero's planet was not with the planet of death, but with any other, then the person being asked about did not die. Venus, John McAfee, did not have the last separating aspect with Jupiter or Mercury, the planets of death. So, what will be our judgment on this chart? Is John McAfee dead? No, he is alive. At least concerning the situation that was presented to us in the news, John McAfee did not commit suicide. He was not killed either. He is alive. And now the case with Robert Trump. Robert Trump is the brother of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Along with his provocative and mind-boggling tweets, Robert from time to time also informed his followers that everything is good with his health, that we should not believe the news if they wrote or said something else. On August 14, 2020, Robert Trump tweeted, "Tomorrow, you won't believe what is coming." And on the next day, intrigued followers found out that Robert Trump died. This is somehow suspicious, isn't it? So one should not be surprised at the horary question that came up soon enough, which sounded like this: is Robert Trump, brother of the President of the United States, alive? Or did he die, as reported? The algorithm of work will be the same. We find the planets of the central actors, Robert Trump and Des, and look at the separating aspect between them. Did it take place? And if so, was it the last aspect for the planet of Robert Trump? Only then we can confirm this. Let's look at the chart. The brother of the president of a foreign country, we count the corresponding turn house and get the 8th house. The 8th house begins in the sign of Aries. Aries is ruled by the planet Mars. So, Robert Trump is represented by Mars in this chart. Now, we need to identify the planet of death. As we have already said before, death in the horary chart is lords of both the radical and the turn 8th houses. In this chart, we cannot use the 8th radical house, because Robert Trump himself is represented by the 8th house and its lord. Then we look at the turn 8th house. It begins in the sign of Scorpio. But Scorpio is also ruled by the planet Mars. We cannot use this turn 8th house because two central actors cannot be represented by the same planet. Mars cannot have an aspect with Mars. This horary chart has closed the possibility for us to simply find the necessary planets to make a judgment. Like it tells us from the beginning, what kind of nonsense are you asking? Okay, then we turn to the Arabian parts of this. We see that one Arabian part is in Scorpio, which means that again we are dealing with the planet Mars that rules Scorpio and which we cannot use. I remind you that Mars is Robert Trump in this chart. There can be no second Mars. And the second Arabian part in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon. So, we have found the second actor, Des, whose role in this chart is played by the moon. Let's see with which planet, Mars, Robert Trump had the last separating aspect. Was this with the Moon? No. The chart shows that the last separating aspect of Mars was the square with Jupiter. But the planet Jupiter is not dead in this chart. What judgment do we make according to this horary chart? Whether Robert Trump is alive or dead? Mars did not have the last separating aspect with the Moon, the planet of death, which means that Robert Trump is not dead. In this way, with the help of horary astrology, you can get an answer to a question like this, or any other, that does not allow you to sleep peacefully. And regarding the confirmation of the judgment made according to these charts, one day the future will reveal the truth.